One. I want to read an article or a post to you before we start today's interview with Jennifer Hough. The article says this is a powerful time in our history. The more contrast, the more possibility is birthed, while the old is melted away. And those that are willing to focus on what is possible will have quite the expansive ride. There are cosmological forces, metaphysical forces, and most certainly many 3D representatives that are bringing forth transformation beyond 3D form to the current state of affairs in this world. Our job right now is not to argue against what is not working. Our job is to focus on bringing what has been catalyzed by the contrast into form. Health systems, economic systems, ecological systems, civilization systems that represent how most of us feel, think, and know that can be possible for this world. This is a time where we have a huge opportunity to take part in huge positive change and create contributions to our evolution like never before. And for those that allow themselves to lean in, it's going to take an upgrade to the way we approach life. Stay present. Much like me, Jennifer writes, our guest, there are enough leaders that just aren't interested in focusing on the drama. Associate with those focused forward on what we can do rather than focused on other people who are contra to our vision. It doesn't matter who is contra to your vision, and focusing there is a waste of energy. Stay vigilant, Jennifer writes, for what is right in your heart and congruent to your sensibilities. Manage your family, your teams, businesses according to those principles. That is going to require consistent practices that keep you out of the density that pulls all of us in. Again, the drama is a distraction from creating forward. Stay in connection, she adds, with those people that affirm your forward focus. It is an easy world full of oh boy, help, conspiratorial, there we go, thinking to get involved in fear-based decision making. Solution-based leadership takes courage, but it also takes a posse of like minds where we can recharge. Be aware of some serious solar storms over the next few days, she concludes. These solar storms will affect our bodies, our moods, but can also distract us from our heart's callings. Awareness is everything. This is a post dated back on August 17th that our guest today, Jennifer Hough, wrote and posted on Facebook. And she also concluded that she's looking forward to this journey together in the glorious unknown, together facing forward. Jennifer Hough, welcome. You're in North Carolina. You're joining us from your home office on a glorious day there. Here in where I am in Toronto, it's cloudy and raining this afternoon, but we've had a nice little few days of beautiful weather too. So welcome to you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again too, Dave. It's the trees are all turning color here. I get two falls because I go and visit my parents in Canada and come down here, and it just continues. The orange continues.
The orange and the reds. The reds have been magnificent. What inspired you to write this?
Well, I saw so much polarity in the world. I saw people fight. I saw my neighbors just disagreeing with each other, people who used to hang out, not hanging out with each other. And I thought to myself, this seems really contra what we were meant to have as the human experience. Not to say that we shouldn't have contrast or people shouldn't have different. I'm not one of these people that thinks that we should all end up around a fire singing Kumbaya. And I certainly, when I hear people talking about things like oneness, I'm like, it's probably not what most people think. So, being someone, I think I have a different context than a lot of people because I work with companies, I work with teams, I work with individuals and leaders, all from the realm of physics. And when you understand the smallest particles of us, you get a different perspective on things. I mean, I just noticed that this is in the view. And this is a drawing that I did about fractals to show people how when you change one thing, everything necessarily has to change, because one thing in the pattern of civilization changing actually fractally and mathematically has to evolve everything else to catch up to it simultaneously. So it's not exactly the same as a 100th monkey theory, because this actually was designed by a mathematician named Mandelbrot, who demonstrated the truth of this particular not even a way of thinking, it's just a mathematical truth. So as I was looking at all of that, what came very real for me is that we are being distracted and gaslit by shiny object stories that really catch the attention of the human mind, especially for those of us who've had a history of being manipulated or betrayed or hurt or cajoled or whatever it is, lied to. And so there's a lot of pointing fingers at people who are betraying our trust and lying to us and all that kind of stuff, but it's happening on every side. So we kind of think we might be right. Sometimes we really believe that we might be right based on our history or maybe the politics that our parents grew up in or whatever. But I thought, in physics, there's this concept called precession. And usually you use the terminology precession as it relates to gyroscopes, because basically when two really strong forces come together, what happens is some new thing is birthed. So imagine that there are 2 or 5 or however many at this point, who's even counting how many forces there are out there. And I was feeling them because I'm talking to my clients, I'm talking to their to their teams, to the leaders. And I'm thinking, I got to do something. Like, I got to start posting some real stuff about just reminding people, you're either creating the world where we're polarized. And if we're polarized, we go to war. And it might be a war in your company. It might be a war in your marriage, but it might be a world war. And I think we've had enough of that. And you've only got a set amount of energy. Some might argue, well, you could channel the energy of the entire universe. Sure. But most people are not evolved enough to do that. So let's just say you have a set amount of energy. And if you're going to spend your energy arguing for the polarity and arguing for your rightness, you end up being more a part of the problem than the solution. And if you use that because all we have is time, Dave, that's all we got. And then we die.
Yeah.
And, you and I have talked long times about health things and all sorts of stuff. And it gets very clear to one when one goes through some serious health stuff that all we got is time. So what are you going to do with it? And so I wanted to remind people that time is a precious commodity, and to come back around to taking our energy and focusing it on that which would create solutions. In precession, when we all come together, ideas get birthed from there when we're focused forward. And when we're focused forward, what happens is those solutions can come to fruition. That precious energy gets used towards a solution, as Buckminster Fuller used to constantly tell us. Like, stop trying to fix the problems. You're putting all the energy in the problem. Start making solutions that transcend the problem. So that's really where what that article is written. It was written from a heart for humanity, a heart for, come on, guys, a heart for it is possible to get to a new tomorrow. That is where that article was written from. I'm just over it. And Dave, I know, there's a question I ask every single one of my clients, and I ask myself every day, and I'll ask it of you and the listeners, which is, it literally drives the bus of my life. It is, what is the greatest thing I can do with the least amount of effort that utilizes my skills to such a degree that I live a life of meaning and fulfillment, and I wake up inspired every day, knowing that I've used those resources as intended, and so I'm what else is there to live, what else is there to do but that? So for me, that's true. Other people might have reasons why they don't think they can answer that question or why their life isn't about that. But I'm like, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a philosophy I live by, and it's called Tikkun Olam, which is a Jewish philosophy, which just means we're here to mend the world and make the world a better place from the time we come in to the time we leave.
Love it.
And and then that's the time we leave. That's the time. You just mentioned time. What are you seeing then in your work and life that that troubles you as far as the ills in the world or in our communities? And then what kind of leadership style do we need to put in place in order to really turn this place around, this the ship called Earth? How do we truly start to bridge gaps, calm divisiveness, bring hope, bring positive change and unity?
I mean, I'm sure you ask 10 people, you get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
But for me, first of all, we have to decide what that looks like, because as I was saying earlier, I think some people think it looks like everyone sits around a fire singing Kumbaya. And I know from our work that we're here to co-create. Well, in order to co-create, you need enough contrast to actually trigger creativity, which means that we can't all be the same. We can't all believe the same. However, we do have to at some point recognize that we all come from one place, and we are a civilization of people that were born to, this civilization was born to create and co-create. That's where we are all our happiest, when we're actually making something new and bettering ourselves or humanity or the world or the earth or whatever it is. And so if we can agree on that, then leadership, therefore, has to be future focused. It can't be. So my experience of leadership right now, all over the world, especially politically, but even in companies, is that it's not really leadership, it's managership.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically managing what is and trying not to lose what is. And that is not leadership. That is not visionary. That is managing resources, human, natural, whatever it is. That's managing resources. True leadership, we might say you need a visionary leader, but to me, by definition, a leader is visionary. They have to be visionary, or they're not leading. They're just managing what is, and managing what is not the same as leadership. Period. End of story.
Yeah, it's
So
like you're busy putting your finger in the dikes along the wall that's leaking.
Yeah. Pointing fingers, putting dikes, It doesn't expand anything. That's why you see a lot of companies going under right now, because the world is changing so fast based on everything we've just been through. New ways of doing business have been birthed. New cars are being birthed. New ways of managing forests are being birthed. New ways to clean up CO2 are being birthed. Like it is fast. It's fast. And the 20-year-olds are coming up, and they are hell-bent for leather. I mean, they are really forward focusing, not putting up with. And so it is time for us to catch up. A visionary leader embraces that the only constant in this world is change. And when you have more contrast, change is demanded more quickly. So one must become a leader who loves change. It's not, there's a quote that just came through me one day. I was speaking at some, I don't know what it was. It was somewhere to some leaders. I said, listen, your love affair with the unknown will transcend your need for courage. Think about that. If you have a love affair with the unknown, it will transcend your need for courage. You will be so excited for the forward movement and the expansion of what has been into what could be, that courage will become insignificant. Not courage, but fear will become insignificant. So if that's the case, and that's what we're headed toward, so that's what's needed, is people who have a love affair with the unknown and a visionary way of, I'm challenged to say leading, because to me, leadership is visionary. It's not like, I don't know why we have to say visionary leadership, because if it's not visionary leadership, it's managing. So, yeah.
Yeah. And Dr. Lance Secretan, based here in Alliston, but also in Colorado, of the Secretary.
I miss him. God, I haven't seen him in ages.
Well, he has these weekly classes that you can attend for like $20 on Thursdays at 11. And we have discussions about leadership, but he talks about not just visionary, not just leading, but inspiring. That's so lacking in the world. Like, I look at our politicians and it's like, well, what's inspiring about any of it? Nothing.
Well, and it's not so much in, like, for me, I think I met Lance on a stage somewhere, actually, now that I think about it.
Probably
So,
did.
yeah. So I remember that, yeah, he stuck out. Yeah, I really enjoyed whatever he was speaking about. Anyways, the idea, inspiring, yes, Dave. And I feel as though 10 years ago, an inspiring visionary leader, no problem. I mean, that person would just have everyone enrolled. But beyond the inspiring piece, the inspiration has to fall within an infrastructure that allows people to take action. And the person who's inspiring themselves have to be involved in the action taking. So there has to be some level of embodiment of the inspiration. Otherwise it falls flat. So there's a lot, like I've noticed in the world of people that do some of what I do, there's a lot of people that speak a good game, but the actual doing of the stuff, I'm constantly engaged in projects and they fine tune me, and not all of them come to fruition. And I engage and do work to, but then they birth something new. And I'm constantly looking for the answer to the question, what's the greatest way I can contribute with the least amount of effort? Even though I'm scared out of my mind, honestly, Dave, I'm scared. I don't know how to do half the stuff that I'm involved in, but I keep thinking, if I like, is it special people that do this stuff? No, it's just you and me. We do it. You do it. I do it. We're not special. We're just out here answering that question. And it's not about, I don't think it's about being special. I think it's about being grounded in action. So yes, inspiring. And then it needs infrastructure to support. And then it needs a leader that actually engages in the infrastructure and does the things that they're talking about, such that it becomes believable. So for me, that's a huge part right now, because a lot of people have talked a big game in my world, but haven't actually done anything.
And I'm trying to analyze, like, why hasn't action taken place? Is it because we're in this sea of divisiveness, politically, or both sides are bashing each other? Or is it because there's so much fear on the planet that it's got us stuck? And I remember, or is it because, like, when I took the Landmark Forum years ago, they said they kill leaders. Look at Gandhi, gone, right? Martin Luther King shot, Kennedy's, both the brothers shot. They kill leaders. So what is it that's holding us back from really sort of, saying, damn the torpedoes, I'm going for it? Like, I feel we live in such a climate of absolute fear. It's just that it's stopping us. It's debilitating us.
Honestly, Dave, I'm gonna say something controversial.
Good, go ahead.
So, woot woot.
That's what we're here for.
I understand that it looks like the world is going to hell in a handbasket, to quote my grandmother. I don't know anyone that uses that saying aside from me quoting my
No,
grandmother.
I use it too, but we're the
Do
same.
you? Yeah. So it looks like the world is just, and if we all we watch is the news or we read the newspaper, or even if we talk too much to our friends that aren't conscious about what they focus on, it would appear that way. I have the good fortune and am involved in a project right now that is specifically to expand on this idea. And it is, uh, so far, it is a purely Canadian led venture, even though I live in the United States, um, with some Americans coming along. It's going to be big. And it's inspired from my answer to your question. So my answer is this: where we focus and where we put our energy and where we take our action, naturally, we don't even have to look at the laws of physics or what someone else would call the law of attraction. I'm not even interested in that. The law of attraction, as most people talk about it, isn't even what the law of attraction is anyways. But even in a real physical way, when you're around people that are can do, when you focus in on projects like good news about things that are being done, about cleaning up, my God, there's things being done around cleaning up uh, plastic bottles in the ocean that were never happening before. There are things happening around, here in North Carolina, they're going to start burns so that as it gets drier, the forest fires can't rage. And they weren't doing that before. And they're doing that because of what's happening in California, right? So they're going to do controlled burns. Yay. There are things around. I mean, there's a whole project that I can't say much about, but let's just say there are benevolent forces at work to buy huge parts of the Amazon rainforest to never be used for anything but a rainforest, right? There is stuff happening that people don't know about that are crucial to our evolution and our thriving, that I am afforded the exposure to, that make me very happy. And they are equal, if not better, to the forces of crazy out there, or let's not be politically incorrect, the forces of disconnection out there, disconnection from the heart of humanity, disconnection from, people. It's like every man for himself, every woman for themselves. When we start doing this together, something changes. And so there's an exponentiation factor whereby 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 11. So I'm more interested in exploring the mathematics and the social reality of finding out what the end product that happens when we all come together. One thing, Dave, I was going to say, every friend of mine that I know, and I bet you it includes you, okay, has had this, that is part of this change, that somehow knew that something else was possible, even if they're feeling hopeless now. They have had the idea in their head at some point. Why isn't there a good news newspaper that's international? Like, why isn't there an international good news newspaper? And the media might say, well, because people won't read it. That's not what sells. Hence, we talked earlier about being gaslit and the shiny object syndrome. But if the news is good enough, it sells. So I just want to say that we yearn for that, but we aren't most people aren't taking conscious action to seek out the places where all that information is, so that they can start to get involved in something that's actually more evolutionary rather than divisive. And it's time to switch that.
Right. And I agree with you. And I think I've talked to you about good news newspapers. And, with my broadcasting work, it's
Of course.
been about empowering.
Yeah.
others and small business, big ideas, that kind of thing. But I also have been doing some thinking as to my own path is why am I watching this negative stuff on? I don't watch news on TV. I stopped that. It's been over.
Good for you. That's a big deal, Dave.
Yeah, it's like I don't care, but I do watch some videos on YouTube that do get to you a little bit, and I say why am I watching this? And I the only true answer I could come up with is it's almost like when you drive by on the highway and there's been a bad
Yeah.
accident
Right.
and you look and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not gonna like what you see, pal.
Yeah.
Driving, but it's kind of like I watch because I'm curious, but the deeper aspect is by watching other people's stuff or misfortunes, I'm not working on my own life.
Hello.
What's
So that is, it is. It's like there's a massive, you know, mess happening on the earth, and we could drive by like we're rubbernecking the mess, right?
Yeah,
And so here's the thing, we don't even know from the YouTube or from the news what's true, what's not true. People are
yes,
so committed to their truth. How do you even know what you're watching? And it might be a partial truth, but in the greater context, it's not such a big deal. I just saw something like that happen recently where everyone was up in arms. It's like, really, from the greater context, that was actually a good thing that happened, not a bad thing.
yeah,
So so things out of context, so I say this to my clients a million times if I say it once. You have a precious amount of energy, and it does help to get some clarity on what is happening, but allow it to catalyze you to creativity. And in being catalyzed to creativity, imagine what could be based on what you're witnessing, whether it's true or not. It probably has a partial truth to it at very least. And start letting yourself, if you're going to watch those things, this is how I get, it's like addictive, right? So this is what I do to get people out of the addiction. Every time you watch one of those, fine, don't beat yourself up for watching it, but your homework right after is to get your creative brain on and start to think of think big, think global or think local. It doesn't matter. But how could that actually change? Because if there can be in physics, so now let's go to physics. In physics, if there can be a problem, there are instantaneously thousands, if not millions of solutions, because you can't have a problem without all the solutions for all the various people that might need to catch up to how you resolve that, because we're creators. Problem, solution, we're creators. So in physics, if you can see the problem, you can create solutions. And the solutions in physics, in the universe itself, are always all inclusive. They don't kick anyone else out. They don't make the world worse for anyone else. They don't come up against belief systems. They're solutions that include all. So start to imagine, if you're going to watch that stuff, for at least 10 minutes after you watch it, see if you can catch up to some possible solutions or start the mechanics in your mind of some of the solutions that might be based on what you're witnessing. Because it's
wow.
being birthed in physics. So you might as well even just attempt to catch
Mm-hmm.
up to what's possible.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a question I used to ask groups I used to teach
Yeah.
about creativity or people's perception of their lack of creativity. And I would ask, what's half of 13? Right?
Yeah.
And it's 6.5. Anything else? No, that's it. Right? But there's so many other possibilities. There's 13. There's
Yeah.
2 divided by
There's 1 and 3.
1 and 3.
There's the first half of the 1 and the 3 and the bottom half of the 1 and the 3.
Yeah. There's
Right.
six plus 5 or 5 plus 8 or no, sorry, 5 plus 8 or 9 and 4. These are all half of 13s, right?
Yeah.
So there's many permutations and computations,
Yeah.
and they're all right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, none of them are wrong.
Nope.
But what would be the answer that would include, that's right. We got to go outside, because sometimes when people do the exercise, they go down the rabbit hole of, well, the only way that's going to happen is if all the politicians get on board. Or the only way that's going to happen is if there's a civil war. Or the only way that's going to happen. And there's all these solutions that are very linear. And I'm like, no, no. In that model I shared with you about when there are two forces or some forces that come together and there's new energy that's birthed. That energy that's birthed of the solution or a non-linear way of bringing something into congruence in that world, when we catch up to that, it's usually something that no one's ever thought of. And that's what I'm asking people, to us all, to start to think about. And so this project that I'm working on that I can't share about, which is really a bummer, but I will. I'll be back, Dave. I will share it with you.
Okay, I want.
I can't wait to share it. You're going to love it. So anyways, it's totally I call that a third entity solution. When there's two things and the of them is not working, something else is birthed. The thing that's birthed that includes both of them. Both of those sides will want to do that thing. They won't care about their sides anymore. And so that's the beauty of it, right? And so I'm always thinking that way because, again, once you understand physics, you just you're not really interested in the same old.
Right.
So because something else is possible. Plus, it's way more fun, Dave. Way more fun, as you know.
Yeah. We're chatting with Jennifer Hough. I'm your host, David Cohen. And before we continue, I should let you know who Jennifer is. Jennifer is a seer, an alchemist, a best-selling author. Her work to assist each of us to awaken to our innate abilities beyond the five senses, to live life in flow and passion, and truly experience our lives as a piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth in this lifetime. Yeah, she's really magnetic, authentic. She's blown audiences away all over the world. She's been emanating her special kind of light from Peru to Hawaii to Toronto to Germany and Australia and North Carolina.
There
So
you go.
she's also teaches programs like Get Out of Your Own Way, the Personal Mastery of Awakening, the Awakening Coach Training Program, and also takes those ready to have that full experience on awakening adventures all over the world. I was speaking to you, Jennifer, about the municipal elections here in Ontario
Yeah.
last week, and voter turnout was at an all-time low. And what do we need to do to stir people up, to begin to let go of maybe the apathy and to be in action around bringing this new spirit and these new ideas and healing and balance back to our communities or wherever we live on the planet?
It's like we're complacent, right?
Yeah, it's
So,
like
so,
I can't
but
make
that's
a
not,
difference.
I gotta tell you, voter turnout is huge down here in the United States.
I
And
know.
why is that? Because you don't have to do much to shake me out of complacency because I have so much fun creating. And when I find other creators, all I want to do is create, right? It's like having a great conversation with my buddy Dave. So, what's better, right? What's better than this? So, most people are in survival mode. So, one of the things that I've been, I don't know, called to assemble, put together, is a, let's say, an infrastructure to be able to teach how one thrives. Because when you don't even think thriving is possible, you get complacent. And when you give your power away to the powers that be, and if you think that everything that happens in politics, for instance, is just a bunch of lies and people are manipulating you and they're all in it for themselves anyways, which I think a lot of people, I don't think a lot, I just saw the statistics on it. So I know a lot of people believe that. It's over 50% of people here in the United States. They're all full of it. Those people don't hold the values of most Americans. And I feel as though a lot of people have, at least here, and I don't know the statistics in Canada, but here, people are just over it. So, and as you likely know, Americans are pretty feisty. So when they see someone taking their power away when their greatest value is freedom. That does not go over well, no matter which side of the aisle you are, which is a place that we can all come together, where we all love our freedom. We love our sovereignty. So you're asking a question around how do we wake people up? Well, I think that is happening here in the United States. It doesn't look that pretty, because people are still polarized and pointing fingers. In Canada, being from there, I noticed that there have been a few interesting things that have happened around Indigenous Canadians and some things around just I don't even want to bring up the political stuff, but political stuff. And it gets people a little bit riled and wakes them up a little bit. But I think until this is one of those things where my solution is to find a third entity solution where we all start to take our power. It's why I teach what I teach. Everything I teach is around taking your power back and understanding how incredibly powerful you are. Once you understand that, then you don't feel like a victim of the politicians. And if you don't feel like a victim of your so-called leaders who aren't even visionary, then you feel like doing something yourself to change things almost like a Trojan horse from the inside out. And for me, I think that's how, honestly, Dave, which is that project I keep not telling you about, that's what it's all about. It's like I'm more interested in using the power of the billions of people on the planet to change this world from the inside out. I am in no way interested at this point because I think that kind of grassroots movement would actually cause the systems to have to change because they'd have no choice, right?
And here, I think you said freedom in the States. Here, we become extremely complacent in Canada, thinking the government's going to take care of us from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And I think if that was to change, that could be the impetus we need to really shift systems.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. And then I still believe, I mean, that's necessity is the motherhood of invention, right? You take away some of the social infrastructure or the way that it's formed. But the problem is now you've got a culture that, I mean, people could die from doing that. So again, I'm a big fan of giving people their power back without trying to change all that crap. Give people their power back, show them what they can do. And there's so many things they can do beyond what a government could ever do. And all of a sudden they see what's possible for themselves, and then they start putting up with less than they stop putting up with. They develop, I call it divine intolerance. They develop a divine intolerance to what no longer works.
Yeah.
Right. Because what you're talking about is almost like a conservative liberal thing. And I'm like, no, that divides people again.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I get it. I'm not dissing what you're saying. And, I have yet to see a country that has it all figured out. Right. So
we're getting there. We're getting there. Who do we need to inspire most? For me, it's youth. What's your take on that?
I'm going to use a different word if that's okay. I'm going to say empower. So who we need to empower most is our youth. And I feel as though in the generations beyond, 25 years old, it's women. So if you're before 25 years old, youth, like that is the group to inspire. But if you're over 25 years old, I would say women, because I believe that women are the holders of the sacred, the nurturers, the sensitive to what's, not that there aren't men like this too, like you, but it's innate. It's like, I'm right-handed, and writing with my right hand is my natural way. For a woman, it's just the right-handedness or left-handedness, depending, of you. It's just the way you are. So, yeah.
Now, in the post you made,
Yes.
you mentioned solar storms affecting us.
Yes.
What I take from that is the notion that these massive shifts and emotions that we're all
Yes.
going through and the uncertainty we're feeling is actually by design. I think I think we know
Say
that it's
more.
maybe God's way of nudging us along to come back to our hearts and to love. What say you on that? Like, are we being nudged and are we listening?
You mean, is there some sort of divine intervention happening whereby we're being kicked in the butt
Yeah,
to wake the heck up?
yeah. Like the solar
Uh,
storms, the CMEs,
well, so,
eclipses, like, and full moons and new moons.
so the more I delve into the science of this universe and physics and cosmology, and I mean actual cosmology, not like some crunchy granola woo-woo principle. I'm looking for the science of all of this stuff. So there's something called the Schumann resonance.
Mm-hmm.
The Schumann resonance is very interesting because it kind of it kind of measures the static electricity
Of the earth.
between the earth and the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So imagine, so it lightning will show up, just like if whatever, we take your stuff out of the dryer. So the Schumann resonance, it's been shown, kind of starts to reflect the way human beings are rubbing on each other. And there's some kind of a strange correlation between the Schumann resonance of the atmosphere and the environment and how we are with each other. And there's billions of us. So imagine that we're feeding that static, and then it gets more staticky in our environment. So this would be, so let's put that aside. One factor. Factor two, there's this idea that we are creators. Now, if you feel like a victim of your reality, you're not really a creator. What you do is you're back to being a manager. What you want to turn into is someone who wants to thrive, but you have to learn how to thrive in order to apply the laws of physics to be able to then never feel a victim of your circumstances ever again. Because then you just constantly take contrast and create something else. You take the static,
The friction.
create something out of it.
Right.
Right. But right now, the majority of the world is still concerned about how do we stop the static? And it's your fault, And so, but the more people do that, the better. Now let's go to the idea that you were talking about, solar storms. So everything in physics is connected. So although we're not one, like I am not one with the sun, because in 3 dimensions, I'm here on Earth and the sun is over there. Then that means that but in physics, photon packages of light, which human beings give off, and the sun is giving them off too, especially during a solar storm. And photon, I think it takes a day or so, give or take, for a solar storm, for those very concentrated, high velocity photons to reach planet Earth. And what they do is they hit our atmosphere and then travel around the atmosphere even to the back of the Earth, but it hits the front the worst, whichever those photons hit first.
Yeah. So if your
The
Zoom
place they hit.
calls crap out on you in the middle, it's probably
So
because of that.
right. So that affects your Zoom call. That affects your phone can go, AWOL, your computer can go down, lines, they don't do any space shuttle launches when there are huge solar storms, like there, or whatever, rocket launches, whatever they're doing now. They
Yeah.
don't do that when there are solar storms. Why? Because electronics go nuts. but we're electronic and magnetic. So when there's a solar storm, of course it affects us. And when there are more solar storms, what happens is, because we receive photon packages of light, we actually have receptor sites called synchrotron radiation receptor sites on the outside
Oh
of
my
our
God. Okay.
37 trillion cells. And so we actually receive synchrotron radiation is from the sun. So we actually receive it into our bodies. Hello. So the point is this, is that there's more solar, that's happening more now. So so is it stirring the pot? Yeah, in a very scientific way. And does stirring the pot birth new ideas? Yeah. And does it cause us to be more creative if we're forward thinking and we're willing to learn the tools to be able to thrive? Yes. And is it a time to wake the hell up so that we can start to thrive together? Yes. And most of the world is still in survival. So it's almost like it has to get uncomfortable enough for people to do something. So you're asking, like, what can people all over the world, not just Canadians, but people all over the world, dude, things are catching fire. It's dry. There are droughts. Stuff is going on. So never mind viruses and fights about viruses and fights about vaccines and fights about everything. Right. So it's like there's enough contrast in this world right now that somehow you're being forced to find your center. So to me, there's so much noise that you either have a nervous breakdown or you literally just come into the only thing that matters, which is, what can I do to make this, what is the greatest thing I can do to make the biggest difference with the least amount of effort, with the greatest amount of inspiration, such that I wake up alive and inspired every morning. And I know that I actually have a life of meaning before I die.
Yeah.
Like, answer that question and then worry about all this other, like, if you can just sink into that, all this other stuff stops mattering and you start being a net contributor to the bridges we need to build for a new tomorrow. And again, we got to all agree that a new tomorrow does not look like everybody agrees. It doesn't look like all the cultures disappear. It doesn't look like all the religions disappear. That's the variety. That's the fun of this. We're not supposed to agree, but it causes some contrast. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So that's a very long-winded answer to a succinct question. But P.S., great movie on this subject, Dave. Completely watchable by kids and adults alike. An apolitical movie. It's called Tomorrowland. I'm sure you might have watched
Yes,
it.
with George Clooney.
Brilliant. Brilliant movie.
Came out.
Literally, that movie is about this time in history.
Wow.
If you remember the ending. Do you remember the ending?
I haven't seen it. I've got to go dig it up. I have the video.
And the ending of that movie is so before its time, timely, brilliant. And you're watching the movie and you're thinking, oh, this is just like E.T. or like, some kids movie. It's not. It is freaking profound. So really good movie.
I want to thank you for this. We're flush out of time.
Mm-hmm.
I guess last words. Where do we need to be in our lives? As here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're moving into a new season. You
Mm-hmm.
alluded to the leaves.
Yep.
In the Northern Hemisphere, where it gets darker and colder, and we tend to go within more. Yet what's being demanded is maybe we also go without too, like not without, like, but we go out and collaborate in
Yeah.
action and leadership.
Make sure you join something, join anything. In our community, we have something called Agents of Awakening. Go to the Y, like, you know what I mean? Like, go join something proactive that makes you get out of the house with other people. And not to mention health wise, because, I used to be a nutritionist. Go out in the sun for, even if it's cloudy, for at least 10 minutes a day. Let your pineal gland be activated so that, you can keep your mood up, because it's going to be easy to come down, especially with all the crazy ass news,
Yeah.
real, whatever,
Yeah.
So really getting out there and letting yourself be activated, your mood. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Where do we reach you? Like your website, whatever.
Sure. You can go to thewideawakening.com, and we actually have Dave. We just, for the very purposes of getting people into that space, we did we did these amazing videos to activate possibility within people. And when they sign up for our newsletter, that's what they get. It's like, that was another one of my answers. It's like, what can we do? I don't want to just say, hey, you're going to get a great newsletter. I wanted to do something that actually would be useful in these times of great change.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, and then the last question is, what was the response to that post? Were you
Which?
surprised? Huh?
Which one?
That
Oh, huge. Oh my gosh. We then put it into our Wide Awakening weekly newsletter.
yeah.
And we so not only I mean, it got shared a bajillion times. And
This
yeah,
came out of that.
people were like, yes, 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 like just affirmation. And it was from every walk of life, every country, everything. So
Yeah.
super
Well,
cool.
I read that and I went, oh, I got to interview you.
Oh, Dave, so cool. Well, I'm keeping them coming. So
All right. I'll keep
so
watching.
thanks, buddy. Thanks
Yeah,
for
we'll have
having
you
me.
back when you launch that new initiative, and
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
working on that, youth thing we mentioned. So there's some
Yep.
good things happening. I think it's time. What's that saying? It's time for all the good men to step up, and good
Hello.
men and women.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
There's a
Oh,
quote
you're
about.
totally in my posse, Dave.
Oh, thanks, thanks. That was Jennifer Hough. She joined us today. I hope you enjoyed the show. We're going to be back in a couple of weeks. We got Kyle Cease as our next guest. Yeah,
Kyle's awesome.
I know. Talk about transformation. Holy transformational balls. Like,
Oh yeah. He speaks my language. He and
yeah,
I share in a brain cell.
yeah. So we're going to have these kind of casts now and then, and just stay tuned. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Jennifer, blessings. I love you.
Love you too.